Alright, hey guys, and welcome back to a brand new tips and tricks video. Today we're going to be talking about mastering the aerial class. Now, those of you that have been watching the streams lately know that I've been absolutely loving the aerial class, and more specifically the jet trooper, which is the clone aerial, and I just think I've been doing really well. The video that you're going to be watching in the background is a 45 kill streak that I got on stream a couple of nights ago. Probably the best run I've ever had with an aerial, and it got me thinking that a lot of you guys do struggle with this class and with this reinforcement. So what I would do is put out some of my personal tips that I use when playing the aerial, so that way you guys can possibly get a little bit better with it and get some more higher kill streaks and things like that. So basically I've got 6 main tips, and I'm going to talk about them a little bit in depth and kind of how I apply these tips during my gameplay. All of the things I will be discussing do line up with the gameplay in the background, so make sure you're watching carefully as well as listening to what I'm saying. They won't line up directly in line, but you will see them throughout the course of the video, so make sure to pay attention while you're listening to me as well. Now, just before I get into the tips, if you are new to the channel, be sure to subscribe for more tips and tricks videos in the future on Battlefront 2, as well as a whole bunch of other content and live streams as well. If you guys want to see that and you love Battlefront 2, you're going to want to be subscribed and you're going to want to turn all notifications on. So I'll appreciate that if you guys can do that for me, and let's get into the tips. Tip number 1 is going to be to do with your tracing. Now, regardless of which faction aerial trooper you're playing, whether it be the rebels or the clones or the separatists, it doesn't matter. This tip applies to all of them, and this is to do with your aim. Occasionally you'll be aiming at an enemy that is a fairly far distance away, and you'll see me do this multiple times in the video because the clone aerial does have a really good drop off in terms of the blaster that it has. And something that I do is that I aim with the left joystick instead of the right joystick when tracing an enemy at range. Now, what I mean by this might sound kind of funny to some of you because you know we aim with the right joystick. This is more for console players than so much for PC. But what I'll do, if an enemy is running at a distance and they're sort of running across to the right of the screen, I can see them running to the right and I'm sort of looking at them and trying to shoot them. Instead of aiming with the right joystick, because they're at such distance, they're going to be moving very small increments. And unless you have a really low sensitivity or you just have really good aim and control over the joystick, sometimes moving to the direction that the enemy is running can help you as well. So I'll use the left joystick going to the right so that my actual clone trooper is moving to the right as well, and kind of tracking and tracing where the enemy is following. I find this to be really good to make those small incremental adjustments when you're trying to fire at an enemy at range that might be a smaller target or a little bit harder to see and aim at. So this is one to do with your aim. It applies to all of the aerial classes regardless of your faction and which blaster they're using. So I know some of the blasters can be a little bit more difficult than others. Like I know B2 is fairly alright. The clone trooper is really good depending on range and everything, and then the rebel can have the 3-round burst, which can be a little bit harder to control at times with the A280, but you just have to get used to practicing your aim. So that's something that could help with your aim at longer distances, is to aim with the left joystick when tracing an enemy instead of the right. Now, I don't want you to do this all the time, just when you feel like you need those small incremental adjustments. The second tip I'm going to give you guys is to use cover whenever possible. Throughout this entire video, you are going to see me hiding behind rocks on geonosis, hiding behind environmental clutter. Basically, whatever I can tuck myself behind and jump out from to shoot enemies, I'm going to use it. So for the majority of this kill streak, I was in cover, which doesn't leave you exposed to enemy blaster fire. Heroes don't really pay attention to you because they're usually just looking for people out on the battlefront, and they don't really see you hiding behind these rocks and objectives. So this is one thing you can do, is to use cover and retreat when you're taking damage. That's one thing I don't see people do enough. Someone like me, as soon as I start to take hits, if I'm not already shooting at my enemy, I retreat backwards big time. So you'll see a couple of times I'll take a shot to the head and I'm not actually aiming at the enemy that's shooting me. I retreat straight away. Use that jetpack, get out of there, because that's ultimately going to keep you alive. Now, if I'm already shooting at the enemy that is then shooting at me and I start to take damage, I usually back myself one-on-one against most enemies unless they're a hero. So I'm not too concerned about that. But the thing is, if they're shooting you first before you actually have a lock on to shoot them, that's when I'm going to get out of there and retreat back to safety. So there's tip number 2, use your cover and retreat when taking damage. Kind of a 2-part tip on that one. The next one I'm going to give you is going to be extremely useful for those of you that like to play aggressively, and this is how to escape lightsaber heroes. Now, the aerial can be really fun to play, but the quickest way to lose your kill streak is being killed by a lightsaber hero. If you let one of those approach you too quickly, you're most likely going to die, and there are very few ways to get away from them. However, I can give you 2 pieces of advice on this tip. The first one is, obviously, don't let them get too close. If you see one running towards you, back up out of there, get out as fast as possible, and keep retreating until they back off, and then try and shoot them in the back of the head when they run away. You know, that's just something I do. That's not for everyone. But, you know, if you can retreat, that is ASAP what you want to do. Get out of there and get yourself to safety, because a hero is just going to destroy you up close. Now, the second one is kind of, if you're too late to react to a lightsaber hero approaching you, this tip is going to help big time. You see me do it in this clip against a Kylo Ren on the other team. The biggest mistake I see people make when playing the aerial class is when a lightsaber user attacks them, they try to dodge backwards. Now, the natural progression of a lightsaber user is to swing and continue their momentum going forward. So if you dash backwards, their lightsaber swing is just going to come straight back again and hit you that second time. And they only need 2 hits to wipe out an aerial. Just keep that in mind. So you don't want to be dodging backwards. You want to dodge to the side. You see me do a big dodge to the left and then a dodge backwards with the jetpack ability. So this ultimately had me survive the kill streak and keep it going because I managed to get away from Kylo Ren. Now, there was a little bit of luck in the second half. He did pull me back towards him and the rocks got in cover. But the first part is what I want you to pay attention to. You'll see me dash to the left and then jump backwards with the ability to escape that lightsaber hero. So that's tip number 3. Make sure you guys are doing that whenever possible if you get crept up on by a lightsaber hero. Tip number 4 is going to be to shoot while moving. This is something you're going to have to get used to at all times. Using the jetpack when you're playing the aerial class is probably one of the biggest advantages you can have. Being able to jetpack up into the air and shoot down on enemies is absolutely a massive advantage. This is something you need to practice. You need to be able to shoot while flying, because if you can't, it makes it much more difficult to get kills. There's multiple times where I've been in midair wiping out enemies because from the high ground, you have a better vantage point at a headshot. So if you can aim while you're in the air, that is going to help you as well. Tip number 5 is going to be the left to right dodge, and this is kind of a close quarters maneuver that I use when playing the aerial class. This keeps your enemy confused and stops them from getting a lock on you when they're trying to aim. So this is exactly how it sounds. If an enemy starts to shoot at you or aim at you, I do a quick left dodge, then a quick right dodge back to back, and this has the enemy's tracking all out of whack. Makes them harder to aim at you. And again, following off from the last tip, if you can shoot while moving, you are going to be at a big advantage and you're going to have the time to recover and shoot the enemy down before they finish you off. So a quick left right dodge sometimes can be all you need to stop your enemy from aiming at you and get you that last kill. Now, finally, to wrap it all up and give you the last tip before I leave you with the rest of the gameplay, this one will seem very simple, but it can be quite tricky at times, and that is to practice your rocket aim. I see a lot of people relying way too heavily on the auto aim of the rocket. This isn't something that you want to be doing. You want to make sure that you're in control of that rocket at all times, because sometimes the control or the auto aim doesn't work the way it's supposed to. So the biggest thing that I've found is to jetpack up into the air, locate your enemy, and then shoot the rocket down on them, as opposed to shooting the rocket sort of straight across a plane. Sometimes you can get away with it, and I do get a couple of straight kills with the rocket when I'm not in the air in this kill streak, but I'd rather rely on being up in the air and above the enemy and shooting the rocket down on them. That way you get the splash damage when it hits the ground and you're more likely to get the kill. So make sure you practice your rocket aim, and I would suggest to use it from the air more often than you use it from the ground. Anyways, hopefully these tips did help you guys in mastering the aerial class, or at least improving. And if they did, I would appreciate a big thumbs up if there are any tips in here that you weren't really aware of and that you're going to try next time you play the aerial class. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. It's something new that I'm trying, and I will be pumping out a few more videos like this if you did like it. So make sure you just let me know down in the comments and I will get more of them out if need be. As always, thank you guys so much for watching. I am going to leave you with the gameplay here, but I appreciate every single one of you. And if you haven't already, be sure to follow me over on Snapchat. The Twisted Jedi is my Snapchat name, so make sure you add me up to get alerted with a whole bunch of behind the scenes stuff and a lot of cool other features. So thank you guys again. I will see you in the next video, and may the Force be with you always.
Ship prepping for evac. Stop them! Walker down. Repeat. Walker down. Digging in to defend the LZ. Another ATTE for you. Pull those triggers till your fingers are ready to fall off.